For History 2.1, guys, we end up discussing at the end of the Civil War with the storyboard we got situated for your previous test that you, since this is test week. Um, the resolution of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln is sworn in as the 16th president. 11 states decide to secede or leave the Union of the United States of America and try to create their own country under a pseudo Article of Confederation. And there is a 4-year fight to force these 11 states back in under the Constitution and to end what we call chattel slavery in the United States. Chattel slavery, guys, is what you guys know of when most people think of slavery in the Western Hemisphere. Is based on ethnic group or race. So with that situation being done, we want to make sure that you guys understand Lincoln dies by an assassin. So we are trying to make sure that you guys understand that. Which moves on to the next story. Lincoln is killed during Easter weekend, if you want to say that. During that time period, he's killed during Easter weekend. But he had laid out tentative plan Reconstruction. Okay. So the question becomes how to rebuild the South. All right. And so as the total war raged in, we saw that the armies came in, they crushed the ports, they burned the cotton, they destroyed the railroads, they blew up, toll roads. I mean, they destroyed the infrastructure of the South completely. They crushed them and burned the farms. I mean, from the pictures that we have currently, not just of the battlefield, but of what happened to Richmond, Atlanta, Birmingham, Columbia, you will quickly see like, oh my God, today's picture would be like a war-torn country. And this is right here in American soil. So the question is, how do we send economic aid down to stop the people from starving? How do we go ahead and take care of the wounded? Now we have to go back and rebuild this situation. Now that we've destroyed the economy in the South is now collapsed. There is no more slavery with the passing of the 13th Amendment and add that to the Constitution. You have 4 million new freedmen, is what they were called, freedmen, that are now basically refugees as well. Most of them illiterate, most of them can't count, read, any of that stuff. That's a lot of people to try to take care of. And so it puts a tremendous burden on the federal government and these industries in the North to try to find out, how do we even get food down there? There's no railroads. How do we get this stuff down here? It's going to take days, weeks to send aid to these people. The Confederate money that they try to create is worthless. It's paper now. The Union went ahead and seized what gold depositories that were left and brought them back to Washington. And like I said, 2/3, except for the rivers, 2/3 of the transportation systems are destroyed. And of course, the slaves are free. So all that potential labor, how do we manage it to fix everything and put everything back? And again, what will be the issue? How do you reconstitute loyalty back into the country? So Lincoln's plan, the plan that was on his desk, at the time of his death was something this simple. All he wanted was a simple pledge, like you would see the president take an oath on the Bible, oath of loyalty back to the Constitution, and to reconciliate or reconcile without punishment. Nobody's going to prison. None of the politicians are going to prison. Nobody's going to jail. There won't be any restitution. Restitution when you have to pay um, fines. No fines. No fees for damages. None of that. If 10% of your actual voters are willing to accept the 13th Amendment and take an oath to the Constitution, all is forgiven. This is all he said. We've lost too many people. It's too much issues to worry about than to actually haggle over who did what and why do we have to do that. Let's just bring the country back together so we can go ahead and incorporate the South into a new America that's going to actually work for all Americans. And of course, he wanted to redo their state constitutions because they need to include the 13th Amendment about slavery and indentured servitude. So rewrite the Constitution to add those in. So with most of the Democrats out of the Congress, you have a new side that says radical Republicans. Okay, these radical Republicans, when they read his plan, they were like, okay, we love Lincoln. Lincoln was really trying to do something special, but they had their own plan in Congress. And so first, when they read Lincoln's plan, they didn't like it because they were like, that was too easy. It's too lenient, too soft. He's being soft. And so the Republicans in the Congress came up with 3 goals. First, they was like, we need to punish the politicians that left. So no politician that left to form their own country should be coming back and welcomed into the halls of Congress. That's done. Your politician, your political career is over. Number 2, Republican Party is to become a powerful institution like it is now. The Republican Party will dominate politics. We're going to do it the Republican way. And then number 2, no more Democrat. This Democrat thing they're going to put down Democrats once and for all. And then finally, number 3, the federal government is to lend aid to the new freedmen. All right. So again, the Republican Party, guys, becomes a party of big business and industry. And so they're like, wait a minute, we got 4 million individuals that, most of them are laborers, most of them can learn how to read and write, that those are government contracts. We need teachers, we need nurses, we need doctors, we need, these people got to eat. There's an opportunity to make a lot of money financing and supporting this group of 4 million and bring them up to full US citizenship. So this is a huge money-making opportunity that a lot of the business owners in Congress, congressmen stuff, look at it. Look at the potential money we can make. So they decided to pass what is called the Davis and Wade bill. Again, technically Lincoln is dead. And so this is the things we need to talk about. The Davis Wade bill didn't need Democratic support because there's not many Democrats in the Congress. Remember, most of them went to the South. Majority adult white, the majority. Notice that Lincoln said 10%. The Congress bill is asking for a majority of your voting citizens. At least 51% of your voters have to pledge loyalty. Then make a complete new constitution, adding the 13th Amendment, and no Confederate officer can hold state office. It's got to go. No state office, no federal office. All these people that the officers, commission officers, the generals and captains and admirals, they can't hold political office because if they do, we know they're going to institute something to undercut what we're trying to plan. Congress's bill passes, the Davis-Wade bill. This is the beginning of what we call Reconstruction. So Reconstruction starts very timid. Lincoln's bill, we're not doing the 10% thing. They passed this bill. Now, in order of succession, Abraham Lincoln dies. Andrew Johnson is a Democrat. Lincoln actually walks away from the Republican Party and creates what is called for a temporary conciliation and union party. So even though he's a Republican, he decides to take on in 1864. We don't talk about this because it's part of the Reconstruction story. In 1864, he adds Senator Andrew Johnson, who's a Democrat from Tennessee, to his party ticket. So it'd be like Donald Trump right now when he was running for re-election. Donald Trump reaching across the aisle and pulling in, trying to think of a prominent Democrat that wouldn't run. Miss Harris. He pulls Kamala Harris over to help run his party as a unity ticket. He's like, hey, these are the values that I still believe in. We need to show a unity front, and I'm gonna go get Kamala Harris to run with me as a show of good faith that we're trying to do the right thing. This is what Lincoln does. The Unity Party, of course, he wins re-election. No one expects him to get killed. So pretty much like Johnson, you know, you're just gonna be there part of this 4-year run. No big deal. But Lincoln dies. Oh my God, Lincoln dies. Now Johnson, the Democrat who was just supposed to be there as a show of good faith, is now the president. You have a Republican Congress and a Democratic president. Not a good work. So Johnson comes in and says, well, I'm president now, and I need to look out for my Democratic buddies. Lincoln's dead. We're sorry about that, but this is how I think the Reconstruction policies to go. So Johnson comes up with his own plan. He wants to pardon everybody that takes an oath. Huge difference. Except those that are making $20,000, that have $20,000 of property. So, you know, he goes after the owner class because Johnson was not a rich guy anyway, so he didn't like the rich people. Every state has to still abolish slavery, not rewrite the Constitution, but they need to add the amendment in, and let all the Confederate soldiers come back. So if you are a Confederate soldier politician, let them come back to Congress. Okay, let them go back to the state parties and everything else, which are majority Democrats. So Johnson is gave a wink eye to the Democratic Party to let those former Confederate officers go back into the state governments and come back to Congress, and only block certain millionaires that supported the war. So you see 3 different plans, and the only one that passes is the congressional plan. Congress goes with their plan. They didn't like Johnson's plan. They said it was too soft and it's political, right? Because it's really favoring Democrats. Lincoln's is too nice because, you know, somebody's got to pay for this stuff. And how do we get people to pay for it? Well, we need to educate the freedmen and find a way to elevate them and let them rebuild the South. So as we talk about Johnson's presidency real quick, Johnson picks up almost exactly Lincoln's second term, 1865 to 1869. He cannot stand the Republicans. He never did. He's a Southern Democrat that got on Lincoln's kindness, gets into the White House, and they can't stand him. It's a tumultuous situation all the way around. They think he's an idiot, and basically he's a prejudiced person sitting in the White House that doesn't want to necessarily help the freedmen or anything else. He vetoes more Congress bills than any other president in history up until, again, Ronald Reagan, way back, almost 140 years later. No one vetoes more bills against Congress than President Andrew Johnson. So to block him, and this is why Senate guys have to get confirmation. So just like what Mr. Biden has had to do, if you listen to any part of how he created his administration, the Congress actually passed in 1866 what is called the Tenure in Office Act, which means that any president that needs his cabinet has to get it approved by the Congress. They have to be appointed. He just can't put anybody in there. That was to stop Andrew Johnson from bringing a bunch of crony Democrats to help him redo his administration. So it wasn't just run it by us anymore. We're going to interview your people from here on out. They passed it. Congress passed it. He couldn't stand it. He's like, now I have to vet you. You're going to vet my people that I want. They're like, yeah. They wrote it in the law. Okay. He didn't like Secretary of War Stanton and tried to fire him, but he was already there under Lincoln. So any firing, any hiring had to go through Congress. And Johnson said, I'm not taking it. I don't like him. I don't want him working for me. So he fires him. When he does that, the Senate strikes. And they're like, this is our way of getting rid of you. This is what happened to President Trump during his tenure when he decided to fire the FBI director. This act actually kicked in, and it started the entire issue of the FBI court case, the FBI trials, and everything else. President Trump he fires his FBI director, James Comey, and it starts, and the Tenure Office Act kicks in, firing someone without probable cause to Congress, without blatant notification that you are going to terminate this individual. A part of that works for you can't do that. And it actually comes from this law in 1866. And it started an investigation against Mr. Trump that led to a whole nother mess before he gets impeached. Because of him breaking the law, Johnson is now impeached for violating of the Constitution. He's the first president to do so because of this Tenure of Office Act. Just like President Trump just happened 2 years ago. He ends up getting impeached over breaking the law of this thing, undermining the Reconstruction project that the Republicans have set off. He's not removed from office, but he loses so much credibility that Congress actually now can take control. The Senate takes control of the Reconstruction. So with Johnson undermined, the president is a joke now because we nearly kicked him out of office. Sit down and shut up, because we saw that he was prejudiced and trying to help the Democratic Party. We're not letting that happen. They decide to do a military reconstruction of the South, because what was happening is what we're going to talk about tomorrow, or briefly what you're going to see in your Achieve 3000 are the slave codes, which are now reinstituted in the black codes. All the state governments came down and created what are called loitering laws, vagrant laws, stealing laws, all types of laws against people of color to make sure that they knew exactly where they were. You couldn't leave the county. You couldn't do anything. If you were caught at night, you could be arrested, thrown into prison, which is a clause in the 13th Amendment that you can be turned back into a slave if you're going to jail. This is why the prison population looks the way it does. You basically are thrown into slavery if you commit a crime. Okay, so that's how this situation works. So you are granted freedom until you commit a crime, and then your voting privileges, all your civil privileges have been stripped away from you, and they treat you like a slave and confine you to quarters. The Military Districting Act, we're talking about five districts. Every state must hold a new conventional constitution. All male citizens can vote, and to guarantee that, the Congress passes what is called the 14th Amendment, which guarantees all men suffrage. It guarantees citizenship. It's still our rules for citizenship to this day. And we're going to talk about it at the end of Reconstruction, that the states come back and undermine this. And this is why we had the civil rights movement. Everything for our immigration policy to how we're supposed to conduct for citizenship was created under the 14th Amendment, and state government start undermining it in the 1930s and 40s. And this is why you have the, well, even before then, during Jim Crow, this is what Jim Crow starts, the states undermine it. And then 100 years later, you have to have Dr. King and everybody else coming with civil rights to go back and reestablish the 14th Amendment because the state governments have undercut it, okay? Which has caused all these other problems in our current day because they're not following the rules. They found ways to undercut what happened in 1868. So Reconstruction officially begins in 1868, and they're under military jurisdiction. Okay. They're readmitted, but they still have a general in control of the 5 military districts, except Tennessee. You know, they left Tennessee out of it, but the other 10 states are now divided into zones and are being monitored with occupation. Just like we were going to a foreign country, you have a occupation situation to make sure that Blacks are getting voting rights, that they're not being intimidated, they're getting able to buy things. You know, the fairness will be there. So you got major cities with soldiers around the clock. There's a problem, go see the magistrate. The problem, go see the judge. We're going to make sure that you guys are getting a fair shake down here. You're going to school. We start opening up, they all start opening up primary schools, colleges. Like I said, they start naming the first 2 schools or what we now call HBCUs. Howard University, it becomes Howard College, Howard Normal School after General Howard in Washington, D.C. And then here in Raleigh, they create what is called the Shaw College for learning, Shaw Normal College, which becomes Shaw University. Those are the 2 first schools here, you know, and North Carolina helps lead the way with historically Black colleges, what we now call historically Black colleges, to make sure that we educate people of color, to make sure that they can be in society. So this whole thing, guys, about going to school and reading and everything else and learning and getting a trade and a job starts really with Reconstruction, trying to get mandatory schooling off the ground so you can be a productive citizen.